So we're back. You can almost see us, but not quite exactly. But so yeah, so right before the break, I was talking to Stormguard about what had the biggest difference between the start of this tournament and where we're at now. And you're mentioning just like all the primal cards. So we brought gozuu's deck up on the screen just like as a mono primal deck, but you're just saying primal in general as well. I was just wondering if I could get more of your thoughts there while we wait for the top four to be ready.
Absolutely. I think as the meta game has shifted a little bit more towards acknowledging these sweepers, the primal units, especially with their Aegis, has just lined up very well against these sweepers, these like one for one removal spells, or like Mystical Shackle's removal relics, and just been able to grind out advantage that way. I mean, we've all known that Plunk is a very, very strong card since it was released. It's dominated both Throne and Expedition. Um, and although we sort of forgot about it for a week, essentially, when Xenon was very popular, now that a lot of the metagame is acknowledging, hey, Xenon is a pretty strong deck, but there's definitely weaknesses that we can exploit with that Xenon. In the process, it has allowed these primal strategies that can accrue 2 for 1s, 3 for 1s, um, all the time to be able to emerge as incredibly strong. And I think as we as the expedition metagame keeps evolving, I think the strength of just the primal card, so to speak, will begin to like ebb and flow in terms of like how good they are. But I think this is just an indication of don't count any strategy out. There are a lot of different viable things that you can be doing in this format, and yeah, just enjoy it. Like in a diverse format like this, it's so wonderful to see the best player winning. Okay.
Yeah, it also does seem that one observation that Theo and I made last week when we cast the event was that a lot of people kind of just start off playing a lot of the mid-range decks, a lot of the good stuff decks, so you see a lot more Destruction and Xenon because those are just kind of where a lot of the good cards and promos like kind of led you towards. But as we discussed last week, there kind of needed to be like primal and more controlling strategies, such as the Bergen's list that we brought up here, are actually a lot easier to build once the field becomes more defined. Once you know what to expect, you can cater your answers accordingly.
All right. Yeah, and another thing that has impressed me a lot is this display of survival. Yes, I mean, I was already impressed by it in Throne previously in the Huru Control deck, as well as in Found AAC for the brief moment that I enjoyed playing that deck before it didn't line up very well against the rest of the metagame. But we're really seeing the strength of display survival, being able to protect yourself from, say, a Black Book activation, or being able to transform these huge relic weapons fast speed into it's not like the 1 for still does something, but is ultimately still a relatively inconsequential card at this point. And of course, what I like to call the battle at the gates mode, very effectively dealing with the unleash pile that we might see out of the unleash decks. I think this if you can I think the fact that these 2 faction, 3 faction decks are jamming multiple displays in their list, just because of how strong display of survival is really a testament to its position and like overall effectiveness in this meta. I mean, it's a good card. Play it.
So, in the head-to-head, because we are going to watch the Brigand play against Gosu, what do you think are the interesting components? And independent of player draw, who do you think has the edge?
I really like Gozu's position here, specifically because of all this Aegis. Yes, the Bergund has Lunar Claw and Dual Display to possibly get around it, but stuff like Feral Serpent, Plunk, Island, is just going to be extremely difficult for the Bergund to deal with. And th- this being open deckless, Gozu knows exactly that these are going to be problems for the Bergund and can therefore opt to like essentially like mulligan into those key Aegis units. I also think that a card like Palak is going to be extremely difficult for the Bergund to deal with. As long as it doesn't get into combat and therefore doesn't risk something like a Cloric Mix, it is actually incredibly difficult for the Burgund to get off the board, and giving Aegis to every single one of Gozu's units should prove pretty insurmountable for the control deck if that gets going.
Yeah, that all makes sense to me. How do you feel about these opening hands?
I not a Yeah, like with Ghost's hand, yes, the existence of permafrost in that hand is unfortunate, but I still think it's a keep because you have two feral serpents and this thicket trap, which can not only be used to break face ages in a pinch, but also renders these relic weapons from the Brigand's side a lot less effective, which will make it much harder for them to close out the game using these relic weapons, which is a problem because that's essentially their primary win condition.
Right, and also what we lose in having the permafrost in our hand, we gain by having Skycard Synthesis in our hand, and that's a card that can actually just look to be a huge role player in the match.
Absolutely.
So here, Gosu kind of needs to think like, okay, so on your third turn, you can still play cards like Lunar Claw, so I probably don't want to contract my Feral Serpent. If I play the Plunk, then like the Plunk maybe doesn't work out that well, but maybe I want to play the Thicket Trap. Like there's a lot of sort of combinations of how that turn could play out. And
There's a
it,
lot of nuance here as to what might
yeah.
happen.
Yeah, so I think you come up with this line when you say, okay, I think you could have played it like Lunar Claw, or it has to be exactly Lunar Claw. But the problem is if I let you also throw Duelist Blade into the mix, that's just too many cards. That makes it so probable that my Plunk isn't going to connect. So let me just get my value right now.
Yep. I think Goose is it a okay, this is a little bit dicey, because you know that the Bergen has power up for display survival. I think in this position, Gozu should have just simply played maybe the Pharaoh Serpent pre-combat and then attacked with the Plunk, just to make sure that you can get this Duelist Blade off the board.
Yeah, it's tough. Like the overall sequencing of that turn was a little bit tough. Like you could also play the Thicket Trap first, but like that probably doesn't change anything that much. But yeah, it's all stuff you have to map out because then you just end up in the spot here where the one Duelist Blade is going to 2-for-1 you. The display was
Yep.
able to 1-for-0 you. So it just puts a puts Gosu in the squeeze. Like there's pretty much no good plays this turn, and for that to happen so early on is not fantastic. And even choosing
Yep.
to take off part of turn of the next turn by taking some debt here.
Ooh, I'm not a fan of this play just because you know that the dual spade can just eat this um Pharaoh Sprint regardless. Yes, it puts you in an awkward position if they have like a board wipe to clear your Pharaoh Serpent, but at that point then they're using their board wipe as one for one removal, which is not is not probably not the end of the world for the Buggen, but probably not what they want to be doing with their board wipe either.
I'm kind of surprised that, or maybe not that surprised, but I'm surprised that the Bergen couldn't find one hero to play in their deck for the Discover talents. But
Don't want to open yourself up to unit removal.
yeah, I'm just surprised that there's not a unit that's good enough. But I get it. I always love the dedication.
Yep, this Stormhawk plating should spell, I think, the end. Well, not immediately, but it's going to be incredibly, with this Aegis up, it's going
Hmm.
to be very, very difficult for Gozu to claw back into this.
Well, Gozu could icicles and then thicket trap, and that helps a bit.
True. Oh yeah, didn't see that line. Sorry, chat. I'm tired. Uh,
Okay, chat.
ooh,
We
bird nest.
we give Stormguard a free pass for those.
See, this is my excuse for why I've not been doing better. Because by the time we get to the top 8, I'm just half asleep. Oh,
What if
and
I told you that's how I feel at the beginning of the tournament and the middle of the tournament too? I just have bad sleep habits. But no, I
okay.
hear you. It's important to
Okay,
feel
so
well
we're
rested.
seeing. Okay, no, no, okay, a slight note there. So we're still seeing a minor issue with the unleash on boundless knowledge, as we caught at the end of the game there. Fortunately, um, it was what's the it was completely inconsequential at that point, as Gozu had scooped, but definitely something that we're paying attention.
What's the bug? I'm not familiar due to not necessarily playing a ladder as much.
Okay, wait. Oh, okay. Um,
Hmm.
So, for those who can't hear the voice of God, I'm sorry. For those who can't hear the voice of God, we're hearing that goes because this bug has come up. We're trying to address what the situation is in the top 4 right now. So we will be a little while the TOs just essentially decide what's happening.
Okay, so we're back. We, had some internal powwow and stuff, and discuss all the stuff, both with the players, TOs, make sure that everything's fair. Conclusion we came to is that we're just going to remake the match. Really hope it doesn't happen. Or submit bug report to Direwolf, all the usual stuff. But per the guidelines and what's outlined and how the TNE structure currently, we're going to be remaking the game, and so it's going to take a little bit of time to kind of make sure the players are on the same page and kind of take a breather and stuff. But do you think the way that game played out is kind of the norm? Is it what we would expect? Do you think this matchup's like a lot in Bergen's favor, or do you think there's too much play draw dependency, or it depends on like how many deck cards goes who draws?
Um, I don't think that is how the matchup would typically play out because, as we saw, right, the duelist blade just being able to line up to take out about 2 units on Goza's side of the board, that's may not be something that usually happens. Usually, at best, depend like the way that it lined up, I presume it only take out one of the 4/4s, like either the Feral Serpents or the Island. Same goes with the Lunar Claw. I And also, we did see Gozu unfortunately get stuck on power at multiple points, even after digging with the wisdom. So I think if they had a smoother power draw and were able to get that plaque on the board slightly earlier, um, the outcome of the game would drastically shift. That being said, it is very possible for the Bergund just chain spot removal together
Mhm.
and essentially like prevent Gozu from being able to amass any sort of offense, as they did that very effectively in that previous game.
Yeah, I think the most interesting card for me from Gosu's side is how to play Thicket Trap. So it's like easy when you have a power heavy hand that you're just not going to play it. But in a game like that, it's like maybe if you play Thicket Trap on 2 instead of playing a Plunk on 2, then maybe it leads a better spot where it doesn't just get countered by a display. And then you're able to like tussle with the relic weapons, which is a large part of how the Bergen kind of like stabilizes or removes threats or generates some smooth like two for ones with like that duelist blade, for instance. So I think Thicket Trap is a really interesting card to play with here. Like I think it's really good and powerful, but uh, the fact that you need things to go smoothly in general, and as you mentioned, like Plaque is a pretty big role player in that it doesn't die that easily.
I love
So
black. It's such a I just really want to like invoke some ridiculous like 7 drop off Palak when I attack with it and just bonk my opponents for way too much damage. I'm the sort of player who likes their big chunky units, like my Tovans, my
Mm.
Sandstorm Titans, and the so I'm not sure if Palak necessarily like lines up super well in against all the decks that we're seeing, but it's undeniable that if it sticks, it's just amazing card.
So what you really need in Throne is you need to play A, B, C, D, E, F, but then extend the alphabet all the way down to P, and then you can play Palak.
Wait, what's your O?
What?
Well, if we're extending the alphabet deck,
I think we should start with the F and go after F and see how it goes, and then
okay,
we'll.
G. What G? What's our G? I'm already stuck on G. This is not a good start.
It's okay. We'll work on that one offline. So yeah, I think there's a lot of like interesting tension. So the times where the Bergen plays Discover Talents, what do you think they're really trying to look for in the matchup?
I I think in this matchup, the Bergund probably isn't playing Discover Talents that often. Um, I'm, I would imagine either card draw, like as you mentioned, like discovering talents for Boundless Knowledge is just very good because of the way that Boundless Knowledge scales into the late
Hmm.
game. But in a pinch, probably some kind of sweeper just to deal with Gozu's deck. That being said, taking um it I do expect Gozu to be able to apply um quite a fair bit of pressure because say uh Gozu has what, an Eileen, a Plunk, and a Torgov, right? You wipe the board once. They still got a Plunk and an Eileen out. Normally, the play pattern of Discover Talents is you wipe the board, right? You wipe the board, you have a clear board, your opponent's taking some time to rebuild, and therefore it gives you a little bit of a window to play your Discover Talents and find something. Against this deck, it's not really the case. So I'm not sure if the Bergund will be able to take the time off that often to spend an extra 5 power to find the, well, what they ideally are looking to find is a draw spell. So something that doesn't necessarily impact the board that much. And I think another problem is that you can't grab your Stormhold platings with
Discover Talents.
uh, Discover Talents, which is rather unfortunate. Stormhold plating, you're a hero in my heart. Hero in my heart. Um,
So,
but that's probably one of the best ways that you have to stabilize and deal with all of these Aegis units from
yep.
Gozu's side of the board.
Yeah, that all makes sense to me. It looks like the match is starting, so we're gonna go down to that. Uh,
Ooh, excellent. All
so,
right, jumping straight
so
in here.
yeah, so
I
sorry
think
about there, but yeah.
I slammed this island. I think. Oh, I
Uh,
slammed this island. Uh,
well, so does Torgov do? So Torgov doesn't die to Lunar Claw. The
or
Bergen
Duelist
already
Blade,
played
which is
one
also
Lunar
very
Claw.
appealing.
It
Yeah.
also doesn't die to Duelist Blade, so there's a lot going for Torgov.
Ooh,
But
opting not to use the display of
we're back.
the Battle of the Gates mode there to
We're not
deal with
back.
the Torgov, the Border Weapon hand, of course.
We're back sometimes. So yeah, so F Fall ultimately killing the Torgov. It is interesting. So the Bergen was putting kind of a priority on getting the Aegis out there. Probably also understanding that there's this dance with Thicket Trap.
Mhm.
So just making sure that your relic weapons are always live and can be two for ones. We see the Thicket Trap still in Gosu's hand. Gosu kind of curved out this game a bit. We see the Discovered Talents from the Bergen. I have to imagine that that's getting a card like Boundless Knowledge if there wasn't already an answer for this island. But other
Mhm.
than relic weapons, the Bergen doesn't really have many good answers to island.
Absolutely, and I think we can see how the like tempo of this game is so different when Gozu is able to have a slightly smoother draw and get this black on curve essentially.
I like this play.
Opting not actually no, I love this. Able to get the draw off the black with the plum.
Well, it's more that I think you just want to leave up the Skycrag synthesis because you
Synthesis.
already have these Aegis units, and you already know that the Bergen doesn't have a relic weapon that's not Stormhalt plating. It gets a little bit harder once we get into Stormhalt plating range because then you just lose both your units. Um, so I was wondering if we might actually just see the plaque. That way you have 3 threats. That way you can trade well off with the plating. But turns out that
Yeah.
using the Sky
I
Christ.
guess my reasoning for like laying out a little bit more to the board is both your units have Aegis. So even if the Burgunds says has one sweeper, they need two sweepers
Right.
in this position. So I mean, yeah, possibly they have two elemental furies to just get rid of your board, but at at that time, I don't think they had 8 power. At that time, I don't think they had 8 power.
Right.
So
They
you would
well,
be okay at least for one turn at that point.
they had
Probably 20
7
points.
power. So like they could have just played Stormhalt plating and clear the board or Elemental Fury.
Yeah.
Um,
But
I
yeah,
think there's
now with the Aegis units, the Brigand is put in a very, very tricky position here.
mhm. Yeah, so one consideration is you could just play the Sundown Accord on the Skyline synthesis, and then I think that works, right? Yeah,
I think that's very
and then
effective.
you're just gonna have all these counter spells.
That is indeed one way to affect it. Also, I'm just so amused that of all the things to that because the way that these fringe challenges work, that the if there's a random effect, it will pull from the throne pool. I'm just very amused that of all the things that could be pulled, an Aegis unit
Hmm.
just to get in there. Yes, I have lots of Aegis.
Actually, I didn't even know what card that was.
Right, so gozuuu doing a great job of managing their position and able to pick up this game one against the Burgund.
Yeah, so just really landing the Aegis units, being able to play around slash the Bergen not having enough relic weapons to be able to answer them. So kind of what you expect in the typical, there's no wrong threats but only wrong answers. So the threats lining up very well for gozuuu.
Absolutely. And regarding our other matchup, so we have Secret Plans was able to take it 2-1 over Canada. So it's very possible that we see the exact same 75 cards win back-to-back TNE.
That'd
Which,
actually be kind of wild.
yeah, that would be, I mean, that would
Because
be
anyone
amazing.
could have done it. Not the Secret Planes isn't, playing well and like probably practice on ladder and stuff, but it's still like, man, like anyone had access to that deck list.
And I believe this is also Secret Plans' very first tournament. So they could maybe they just pull an very impressive JNL impression
Yeah.
and slam dunk their very first tournament, go on to win the Invitational and qualify for Worlds, like uh, the ultimate hero arc, so to
Yeah.
speak.
From zero to hero in no time flat.
Not zero, 3-2. You see, 3-2.
Oh, wow. Okay, so how do you like Gosu's hand?
I I think fine. I do. Again, you have the permafrost, which is a completely dead card in this matchup. But you have Pharaoh Super and Torgov, which deal with they're sort of like threats on the opposite end of the spectrum, so to speak, because you've got your chunky Aegis unit, you've got your unit that doesn't die to all your relic weapons. So just having these units on the opposite end, so to speak, of the threat spectrum, I think would be really strong for Gozu here.
That makes sense. So Gosu end up uh,
Mhm.
inscribing the Thicket Trap instead of the Skycrag synthesis. So kind of putting a little emphasis on the counterspell ability, probably just trying to protect the Feral Serpent.
Ooh, opting not to inscribe the contract the Pharaoh Serpent
I
here
like
also
that.
makes sense.
You just want to
Yeah.
jam the Torgob, try to get a connect like you want to connect and then be able to discard the permafrost, get you closer to the plaque. You could use your Skycrack synthesis on offense if you have to.
And then I like how gozuu's lining themselves up perfectly to counter uh, a potential board wipe out of like okay, say that the Bergund decides to essentially what's the word for it? Cut their losses uh and not kill the Pharaoh Serpent in that position, then gozuuu would be in the perfect position to negate that board wipe, set the Bergund very far behind with the Skycrack synthesis. So I definitely like this play here. No, this Torgov stat line. Oof. Okay.
Yeah, kind of just demanding the fall, but I think we might see the Skycrack synthesis here.
Yep. I think we're definitely seeing this Skycrack synthesis here working like having the Torgov clear to attack, just working very well with the follow-up Palax in Gozu's hand, I think.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they opt
Yeah,
to
so
do.
you could play Plaque and see if you could draw into. There we go. Now we got the influence online. So what you can
Ooh.
do is you can play the Plaque and then draw off of Torgov, but choosing to do it kind of the other way around. Maybe wanting to just secure this island.
Yep. And realizing, okay, at this point the Burgun's at 13. Um, I'm in a very good position to simply kill them here, especially with an Aegis unit like Island. Okay. Ooh, a third
Laka
plaque.
laka laka laka.
The
It is pretty.
plaque.
It is pretty interesting to me that Gosu hasn't deployed Plaque before connecting with this Torgov, even with the Bergen tapped out. I wonder what the
Yep.
plan is there.
Gosu picking up the 2-0 against Bergen.
All right,
Just
looks like the first
uh,
game didn't matter. Great. The bug didn't matter. So we're we're advancing through to the finals. So it's gonna be Gosu with this model primal deck against Secret Plans on the same Argenport mid-range deck that won last week. We're gonna cut to a quick break, but we'll be able to get you straight to the final soon.